recommendation is you have to watch this video and then try to link all the important concepts that we have discussed with what he's talking about, and then always remember whatever theory or theoretical perspective that you have to use out of the 13 theories that cognitive linguistics has proposed for the cognitive semantics. If you keep in mind these basic things, the analysis gets easier and it gets relevant, right? Be it the theory of brain semantics, theory of metaphors, theory of the conceptual mapping, for example, especially those 4 tenets of cognitive linguistics that you have studied. Can you help me revise those tenets? Cognitive semantics. Meaning is conceptualization. Concepts are embodied. Meaning
encyclopedic
is okay. Meaning representation is encyclopedic, and
semantic representation is
conceptualization is
meaning construction.
Okay, that was meaning construction. All right.
Sometimes called like
You don't have to check if it's what it
my consciousness is held prisoner inside my
is. It's
own
not.
mind. I guess it makes sense. It is.
Any speaker would be enough.
Sorry?
Any speaker would be enough. It has
We
to
do
be
not?
if
Yeah,
it's connected.
okay. I can see.
Made cells. I sometimes felt like my consciousness is held prisoner inside my own body. I guess it makes sense. It is made of cells. In the cyberpunk future, the new Netflix series Altered Carbon, technology has made it possible to convert human minds into pure information. Personality, memories, everything that makes you, can be backed up and uploaded into a new body, or sleeve, a slang term that highlights just how expendable bodies have become. For most neuroscientists, psychologists, AI researchers, anyone involved in many fields of science trying to figure out exactly how matter can give rise to thought and consciousness, that attitude probably sounds familiar. The traditional perspective for research about cognition is that brain equals mind, that everything else, all of this stuff, is just sort of a peripheral support mechanism that the brain uses to drive itself around, get nutrients and coffee to do more thinking. Grow a brain in a jar or simulate it on a computer, feed it some information about the world, and you'll get pretty much the same thing. But a relatively recent movement in cognitive science challenges that assumption. Embodied cognition is a term used to refer to a few different ideas, but they all share a common sentiment, that this traditional view of thought starting and ending with the brain is ignoring an important part of the picture, that the structure and operation of human cognition is deeply tied to and dependent on the subjective experience of being in a human body. Let's look at a couple studies that have motivated this perspective and see if we can't figure out why these theorists are bent out of shape about sleeps. In 1980, George Lakoff and Mark Johnson published a collection of studies demonstrating that many common metaphors have a sort of universal physical sensation tied to them. Let's try a little experiment here. In the next 10 seconds, try to think of as many metaphors or idioms as you can that you use to describe being extremely happy or overwhelmingly sad. Ready? Go.
You simply have to think of different metaphors.
Okay, so what did you come up with? Chances are at least a couple of those idioms fit into a particular pattern. I'm over the moon. I'm on top of the world. I'm on cloud nine. Nothing can bring me down. I'm down in the dumps. I'm feeling low. I feel like dirt. It's not just English either. Many other languages have similar patterns and idioms for feeling happy or sad. People who speak Chinese or Persian also use many metaphors of upness or downness to describe those emotions. Lakoff and Johnson found many other patterns and physical metaphors for cognitive states that also span cultures and languages. Warmth is compassion. Cold is animosity or apathy. Control metaphors. That's interesting, but does it really indicate anything important? Let's look at another finding in psychology and see if anything sticks out. We tend to conceive of our moods and thoughts causing our bodies to do certain things. If you find something funny, then you smile. You agree with something, so you nod. You feel confident, so you stand confidently. But there are numerous studies that show that it's possible to make those relationships run backwards by artificially replicating their usual physical manifestations. For example, people who hold pencils between their teeth while watching cartoons as though they were smiling tend to rate those cartoons as significantly funnier than people who hold the pencils between their lips instead. People who are asked to nod their heads while listening to an argument for a particular policy will tend to rate that policy more favorably than people who are asked to shake their heads. And standing in a typical heroic posture can actually lower a person's cortisol levels, a hormone associated with stress, raise their testosterone levels associated with feelings of self-assurance, and make them more comfortable taking larger risks. By themselves, each of these findings might be considered simply charming oddities of human psychology, nothing more. But advocates of embodied cognition see something suggestive and more profound when they're viewed as two facets of the same underlying principle. What if the entire structure of human thought, everything from abstractions and mathematics to values and ideologies to emotions and language, is deeply dependent on the subjective experience of physically existing in the world with a human body? What does that mean? Well, let's consider that physical metaphor then. Lakoff and Johnson theorized that the physicality of those metaphors isn't some random work of language. It's mirroring an underlying framework of how we construct ideas. When we think of happiness as being up or sadness as being down, it's because our whole concepts of happy and sad are built on a collection of physical sensations. According to this hypothesis, a fundamental part of how we even get to this notion of a thing called happiness requires the physical feeling of being up or above or high. Our bodies feel a certain way when we're experiencing that, and our brains use that feeling as a building block to construct the idea of happiness. That might explain why we see these patterns and metaphors for certain concepts. If the sensation of upness is a necessary part of even conceiving of being happy, no wonder there are so many idioms linking the two. Also, the concepts like confidence are built on certain sensations like feeling our legs spread wide, our hands on our hips, and our heads tilted up. It makes sense that feeding those sensations into our bodies might well trigger legitimate feelings of self-assurance. We're not deviously tricking the brain into believing we're confident by pretending to be. We're physically building the concept out of its constituent parts, the sensations that make up confidence. Okay, so what? It's a neat idea, but what does it get you? Well, as we noted, many of the scientific fields attempting to decode human thought are operating on an assumption that the only really important thing to replicate is the brain. There's a pervasive sentiment that if we built an accurate computer simulation of a brain, we'd pretty much be done. That getting such a simulation to think like a human would just be details. The idea that you take the time to also simulate a body for that brain and an accurate sensation of that body would leave a lot of those scientists looking at you like you had two heads. But the embodied cognition theory suggests that the physical instantiation and experiences of the thinker are essential building blocks for its thought. And if you want to produce a human-like intelligence, you need to give it a human-like body. If you stuffed a functional human brain into a weird alien body or didn't give it a body at all, it's possible that you get a very different sort of thinking, or maybe even an absence of any meaningful thought at all. This idea has been gaining steam, and an increasing number of researchers have found it to be a useful way to think about known psychological phenomena. It's also proven useful in fields you might not expect, like robotics, where rather than trying to program highly sophisticated control algorithms, it's sometimes easier to build intelligence into the physical shape of the robot. We won't know if embodied cognition is actually true until scientists figure out exactly how cognition works. But until then, it's probably not a bad idea for at least some of those scientists to examine a link between psychology and physiology closely, just in case. Of course, with the number of full frontal mutisms in altered carbon, it's kind of hard not to. Do you think that embodied cognition sounds like a plausible theory? Please leave a comment below and let me know.
Are we a body with a mind?
Body paint connection.
He actually gave us the hint of what are the new revolutions that are being taking place in the field of AI. They program a system based upon the neural connectivity patterns that we human beings have, the way the human brain works, the natural intelligent person, artificial intelligence, you are just giving that artificial intelligence to something. But then it cannot work alone unless and until there is something physical that encapsulates it. So आजकल जो chatbots बन रहे हैं, right? So there is a physical thing that's required for this mind or the patterns or neural structures to encapsulate so that that physical structure can work. Right? So what do you think can be the future trends in the field of cognitive linguistics? Besides just analyzing the language, I have shared few research papers with Dr. Ayars. He'll share with you to see how cognitive linguistics can be used. There are my research papers in different dimensions. But then think something else as well. How you can make use of the embodied cognition. And maybe think of linking it with AI. Right? So because of the we'll stop here. So this is what was the conclusion. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Just remember this. This was the output of what I did in my PhD research. That's how the embodied cognition happened. Right? Just keep in mind this one. Every time you really try to understand any concept.